Rob. I think it's called helming, not driving, but just, but good.
It's baby steps, all right?
Not that I know anything about it, but that's what I'm told. Lovely. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I learned something today. I'm happy.
Power to Live More with Joe Dodds.
Welcome to the Power to Live More podcast, all about productivity, organisation, well-being, energy and resilience. I'm Jo Dodds, and I started this show to enable interesting people to share their stories about how they use their power to live more, and by that I mean to do the stuff that they want to do more than the stuff that they need to or should do. It's about creating a life for yourself where you have the energy, health and space to be happy and fulfilled, spending your time as you'd like, whether that be at work, home or somewhere else entirely. That's your choice.
Hello, my name is Ellie Dodds and I'm co-presenter, and today Joe is interviewing Rob Catalano of WorkTango.io. Joe and Rob originally met when Rob was working in the UK with Achievers and connected with Joe via Engage for Success. They met at a HR and technology event, hit it off, and have worked with each other a number of times since. Rob is passionate about helping companies succeed by leveraging technology to make employees successful. With his unique experience in HR technology as a founding employee at Achievers, Rob co-founded WorkTango, a platform that offers real-time employee insight and agile performance and management that positively impacts alignment, accountability and engagement of employees. Rob has had the privilege to speak in over 30 cities the past 3 years and loves the opportunity to connect with passionate HR leaders across the globe. Back to the studio.
Today I'm interviewing Rob Catalano of WorkTango. Hi Rob, thanks for joining me.
Hi Joe, thanks for having me.
So you're not from here, not from around these parts, are you? Where are you from?
Yes, you can tell from the accent. I'm not from there, but I'm actually from Toronto in Canada. But I did just move back to Toronto about 6 months ago from living in the UK. I was right in downtown London.
Yeah, which is how we met originally. So tell me a bit more about you, what you do and where you do it.
All right. So you heard about where I do it. I'm in Toronto now. I was actually in London for the last year, but actually in San Francisco the year before that. So everything I have been doing has been in about 3 different countries over the last year. The reason why I was moving around, I was actually running marketing and global expansion for a company named Achievers, before January of this year. That was an HR technology company that, focused on helping companies recognize their employees. And now I'm in Toronto and launched a new company called WorkTango, and basically co-founded that with someone I've worked closely with over the last 10 years. And it's basically a platform to help managers have better, more accountability with their employees, really focused on that. So when you talk about what I do, when you're co-founding a company, you do a little bit of everything. So I'm pretty much involved in all elements of getting a company off the ground.
Lovely. Sounds very exciting, especially all the jet setting around.
Yes.
And so as far as where you work, you currently have an office, or I think do you work in a co-working space, if I remember rightly? Is that right?
Yeah, so for the first part of it was working at home, but right now it's at a co-working space, which is actually very interesting because it's a small team, and outside of the ability to focus and work closely with your team in a place, there's also the ability to learn and communicate with several other companies that have different ways of doing things and different personalities and different just lenses on the environment. And it's cool to get all this feedback and real-time feedback from people around us. But it's cohabitated with about 5 different startup companies in a location in downtown Toronto.
Mm-hmm. And prior to that, when you were in the UK, you worked from home, or as we were laughing before we came on air, from hotels and aeroplanes, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, home mostly. When there wasn't good internet, for example, the hotel down the street, or definitely on the planes in those long 9 hour flights I used to do from London to San Francisco. So anything with a laptop and potential wireless, and even if there wasn't wireless, sometimes easy to focus. But I'd say it was a roaming worker for many years.
Yeah. So thinking about your days then, do you have a particular routine? I always am particularly interested when people have worked in differing locations, because one of the things, I try and have a routine, but when I'm away from home, it sort of falls down. And some people are very good at maintaining that routine in different places. How does that work for you?
Yeah, so majority of the time, when I'm not traveling, a perfect morning routine for me is I kind of call it a bit of me time, where I'll either do some gym or some type of workout or some reading, really just something that starting the day where you're not jumping right into productivity from a work standpoint, because work can be relatively consuming throughout the day. Always starts with a healthy breakfast. You got to get that going properly. What I also do is I review my top 5 from the night before, and what that means is that I actually every day after work write a top 5 of top 5 things I'm going to focus on doing the next day to help me prioritize, especially when there's a lot of things going on. So I do review that in the morning just to make sure it aligns with what I created after work the day before, and nothing had changed from then. Now, I guess what's interesting as well is I do like to catch up on my emails before around 10 a.m., but I don't touch my emails for the next 2 hours and really focus on 1 or 2 of those important things from my top 5. Now, and that's really just a typical morning on my end. But to your point, when it comes to traveling and having meetings, it does change, but I try to keep things similarly. Especially when I'm traveling, I'll try to book flights at 6 a.m., 7 a.m., so I can still get caught up at the airport on the day and just start the day right. May not go to the gym, but really try to start really early. And actually, to that point, there's this really great book. It takes about 20 minutes to read. Called What Most Successful People Do Before Breakfast, and just something that I read 5-6 years ago and thought it was something I wanted to add into my routine.
Lovely. That's a good resource to have. So you talk about your top 5 things. A lot of people talk about 3 things. Where did the 5 come from?
It's something we started doing more from a daily productivity thing back when I was working at Achievers, and the way we always looked at it was that there was the top 3, but you didn't want to limit it to top 3. So if there was a stretch goal of something you found was, you wanted to get done, that was the 4th one. And the 5th one was always something from a personal development standpoint. So it had nothing to do with work, but it was something you personally need to do. So it's still, I guess, it's top 3 productivity at work cloaked with a 4th stretch goal and a 5th personal one.
Lovely. I wasn't expecting that answer. I thought you'd just go, well, there's always lots to do. 5, why not 5? So that was a great answer.
Yeah, and you know what? Who's kidding who? Sometimes it gets to 6 and 7, and you really try and stop and not do that. But sometimes it's forced on it. But you really try and just keep it focused. Yes,
yeah, it's interesting. I try and do three things for the day, and what I realised recently was that I was tending to I was sort of wasting 1 or 2 of the 3s sometimes by putting urgent things that must get done today on there. And they were big things as well. But actually what that meant was that it was becoming an urgent list rather than necessarily an important list. And the urgent stuff would get done anyway. So I didn't really need to sort of waste that space, if you like, with one of those. So I've had to keep reminding myself that it's that those things are going to happen anyway, however big they are, because they're urgent, and I'm not going to forget to do them because they are urgent, to try and sort of really focus on the big things, because it's hard, isn't it, to really work on the stuff that's really important that isn't required for another week or 2 or 5 or whatever. And I guess in a startup situation, that's probably even worse. You've probably got so much coming at you that needs to get done, and as you say, probably less people to do it, so you're having to do most of it anyway.
Yeah, and to your point, it's a struggle of the important versus urgent, and how do you prioritize those things? And that is why literally between 10 a.m. and before lunch, I do try and shut off email, shut off the distractions, I don't put the phone on airplane mode, so to speak, but if someone really needs to get a hold of me, they can call me. But it's focused from 10 to 12 to try to do at least that top one thing. So to your point, when something urgent does come up, you can take care of it the rest of the day and feel a bit productive that you've focused on your most important thing.
Mm. And so you said that things are pretty similar when you're traveling, or at least you sort of build in similar ideas for the morning. What about the getting stuff done? Does that still follow in the same way, or does it just go out the window because you've got other things on because that's why you've travelled?
Yeah, well, I think it really depends, right? It's when you're doing those quick, last or 2 weeks ago, did a 6 a.m. flight. It was only about an hour and a half. You can still go through that same cadence and focus in the morning, and depending on meetings and what you've set up, you can still go down that road. But when you're doing 5 to 10 hour flights, I think the day just it's tough to go through that cadence. And what I just try to do is say, what is my top 5 for the flight? Like, what am I trying to accomplish that when I complete the flight? Sometimes it's sleep, and that's fine, but what do I want to accomplish?
Yeah.
It just changes the day up, obviously, when it takes up a quarter to a third of your day in the air and maybe not even accessible to the internet.
Yeah, I think that's a key point. It's about flexing to that scenario. So if you have only got an hour in the day where you can do stuff other than what you've got, the reason that you're traveling, the event you're going to, or whatever, that you actually do focus on just that hour and what you can get done in that time. So, in question, you're a startup, so it might be that you don't finish the day very much, but now you're in a co-working space and there is that opportunity to really leave the office. How is that working for you, and how does that compare to when you were working from home?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it has changed. Personally, for me, when I was, in the UK and working from home most of the time, I would put some of those, personal type commitments in the evening. I would try and catch up on some specific things. I had a part of the evening where I would catch up on emails and do some things on that end. But here, I think there's always commitments after work, to your point. There's either dealing with the urgent or even just being home and having, more commitments to friends and family and things like that, where then the evenings are not always the same. I find that I'm most productive when I write that top 5 at the end of my work day or at the end of the evening to focus on my next day. But it's a mishmash of just different things that happen, whether I'm like going home to, from the office, or whether I was just, working from home anyway. So it's, the biggest thing for me is just trying to catch up on emails so the next day I'm not just barraged with stuff and feel like I'm waking up behind. So it's really a bit of a catch up for me in the evenings, whether I'm at home or whether I'm on my way home, in most cases.
Yeah. So thinking about getting things done during the day with your top 5, how do you manage your time during the day? Do you have a to-do list, or do you just purely work to that 5, or do you have tools that you use, project management tools?
Yeah, so I have one list of one list that I have in a tool called Evernote, which I'm sure people have heard, that I have work tasks, personal tasks, but outside of the top 5, there's always a running list of other things that I have going on. So some might be things I want to get accomplished next week, or if I have an idea and I want to do it, I write it in something I want to do someday. So I kind of keep a list of personal and work stuff outside of the top 5 so that I don't forget things. But also what's interesting is, as a leader of a team I work here at WorkTango, our actual tools help. It's built to help managers have more accountability on what they are doing for their organization and for their team. So I actually use WorkTango as a tool to prioritize the things that I need to get done for my team to make sure that they're successful. So I also use WorkTango as a tool as well. So those are the 2 major tools that I bounce back and forth on, just to make sure that I'm getting those things done above and beyond my top 5.
So here's your little opportunity for a pitch. How does WorkTango enable you to do that? How does it work? The short version.
Short version. So if we think about one of the struggles managers have, it's that they struggle to sometimes keep accountability on their own side of things, of things that they, committed to their employees or conversations that they had, things they need to follow up on, as well as keep themselves and employees more focused on more longer term commitments that they have, whether it's, a quarterly goal or a monthly commitment they have. So the idea is that whether you're having a one-on-one discussion with an employee or you want to reference, what you're focused on, or the employee can do that as well, it's a tool that allows you to put in short-term and long-term commitments. It's really what we call commitments, which is really anything from a task or a follow-up, or again, something that you need to do, which unfortunately most managers lose track of, or they're tracking in 5 different tools. And that's basically what one of the versions of what we help, help managers be more productive on. But I'll save the rest of the pitch. On the task side of things, that's one part of it.
Lovely. So you talked about a couple of tools then, so WorkTango and Evernote. Are there other tools or apps that you wouldn't be without?
I know it sounds weird, but my Fitbit tool is actually the app and the Fitbit device that I wear. It's just something that I really love because I have certain goals and things I want to accomplish, and it helps track it and remind me when I'm way off or when the recognition when I hit it. But those are the 3 that I can think of that I use most days. And do you compete with your Fitbit? That's something that a mutual friend of ours, Kathy Brown, who was on our first podcast, uses hers for. She uses it to have little competitions with her friends. I actually have an old colleague that used to invite us all the time to these workday hustles, I think they were called. So 5 days of the week, it was a step challenge, and I would always join them. And to be honest, like sometimes that was the difference between, walking somewhere to taking a cab, or it did kind of give you this little push to, from a competition standpoint, to try and win the competition. So yes, I am involved in those, and I try and win them. I'm not surprised. So keeping on that theme, then tell us a bit more about what you're doing to look after yourself, to keep healthy. So from a health standpoint, I mean, obviously try to have a good diet, frequent gym. Even with the Fitbit tool, you can try to have at least 6 hours of sleep. And I think the good thing is, especially with the Fitbit, it allows some of those healthy things to come out. And that's pretty much it. I think the other thing is just, you talked before about how do you manage your tasks or manage your time. I think health is not only just a physical part of it, but just kind of this state of mind. And what I try and do is I really try and theme my days. It's really easy to get bogged down in a lot of different things and tasks and to lose a day or a week. But sometimes I really try and just focus. And Thursdays will most exclusively be about our product, or Mondays are on marketing, or Fridays are more about writing because I do a lot of columns and blogs. And so I think healthy isn't just your physical state, but obviously mentally as well. How do you keep yourself on track? And that's another way I try to do that as well. Yes, I like that idea. I've tried to do it myself in the past because I've heard a lot of people finding it useful, but I don't know. I think because I just have so many different things that I'm doing, with 2 businesses myself, 2 business focuses myself, plus the work I do with Engage for Success. I think it just makes it quite hard to have those themes because they just fall by the wayside the minute another priority comes in. Yeah, it's hard to be disciplined. And actually on the kind of the mental wellness part of it, one thing I haven't got involved in is the whole meditation. And I've really tried. It's been hard to keep up. It's something I'm thinking about adding to my morning routines. And, that's one, goal I have, is to try to figure that out and make that a part of my, my daily routine. Yes. Yeah. We've recommended some tools actually on previous podcasts, and can't remember, but a lot of people talk about Headspace, don't they, the app? But there's a podcast, something like My Daily Meditations or something, and it's a daily podcast that's put out that helps you to meditate, and the themes change all the time and stuff. I found that quite helpful in the past. Not that I actually meditate. I choose to sing for my meditation because I wasn't really into the idea of meditation or yoga for that matter. But that's all that counts, isn't it? Exactly. So, talking about
trying to do something or trying to do more of something, that sort of takes us nicely into the learning and improving yourself part of the interview. What sort of things do you do to improve, to help you to learn?
I guess a bunch of things, or at least try. One is definitely try and read, right? You try and read a few books a month, and have my long list that I try and vary through, and that's one part. And traditionally, mostly on the business side of things. But a big second one is not just learning from books, but just connecting with people, right? Like you meet new people and you learn about new approaches and ideas and thoughts and ways that they do things, and it's just a great way to learn and respect what other people do. So from a learning and improvement standpoint, the ability to chat with new people is just a good opportunity to do it whenever I can. Also, just I mentioned I write for a couple of columns and blogs, and I think writing is one thing that I do, and I commit to doing these things because it helps me learn and improve. It forces me to think and read and research other ideas, and what I find is when I have an idea that I want to dive deeper into, I need to do a bit more of the research and focus on it if I'm going to actually write a column out there as well. And then I think for me, it's just, I just try and push limits by setting those goals, right? Really for everything, whether it's what top fives I want to do or some of the, fitness goals I had. I'm always trying to do that, but I've also always tried to do long-term goals as well. So before I was 30, identified what success looked like to me when I was 30 years old. And now that that's gone and passed, I have new goals for when I'm 40, and they're super personal and things that I try and do, but outside of the daily and weekly goals, there are some long-term ones as well that try and keep me focused on a long-term basis. But yeah, I mean, those are the things that come to mind in terms of what I do to learn and improve.
Yeah. And the thing about planning and long-term planning, do you have like a structure to that? Do you do that at certain times, or is it just something that you've done and that you review when it feels right to do so?
Yeah, so actually it's interesting. We, back at Achievers, we were very focused on, on employee growth. And what we asked people to do is this whole concept that we had was top five. But as an organization, we had everyone in the company create their top one. And this top one had to be a personal goal. And it wasn't anything that had to do with anything from the business or professional. But what we said is, create your top one and make it one of three things. Make it a wealth goal, a health goal, or a self goal. And what we meant by that was wealth, is there something you're trying to save up at or be at a certain state in your life? From a health standpoint, obviously, whether it's running a marathon or being a certain weight or whatever it was. And then self was maybe more specific to you. Maybe it was being, meditating more or other things. But I always try to think, do I have a goal that's on the wealth side of things, the self side of things, and the health side of things? And that's how I structure, what are my future goals personally.
I like that. That really makes it quite simple, doesn't it? I like that idea, definitely. Okay, lovely. So what about you talked about reading, you talked about learning from reading. Are there books that you'd recommend, or maybe moving into films or music? Anything not just necessarily about learning, could be about inspiration or just things that you've enjoyed that our audience might be interested in?
Yeah, so I mentioned that earlier one, but what the best or most successful people do before breakfast.
Yeah,
literally, it's a quick read, and it's just a cool thing to just reflect on. I really like this book I read recently from Ben Horowitz called The Hard Things About Hard Things, and it's really stories of how do founders run and sell and manage their new technology companies, and I've been part of technology companies for the longest time. Something just super interesting to me to help me grow the business at Work Tango. And the other thing I guess I would suggest, and as my background is more in the marketing side of things, but Seth Godin has a book out there called Purple Cow, and I don't, whether you're a marketer or not, it's more about how do you stand out? How do you stand out individually? How do you stand out in your messaging? It's just a cool book to kind of reflect on, how do you stand out when there's so much noise out there and whatever you're trying to accomplish at work or in your business or at life. So, I mean, those are some of the ones that come to mind from a recommendation standpoint. But in terms of other, inspiration or enjoyment, to me, it's a bit more of a relaxing thing, but I play guitar and, and kind of like just listening to music just from that standpoint, from an enjoyment standpoint.
Yeah.
But those are the major things that come to mind.
Yeah, no, that's cool. It's interesting. Purple Cow was recommended only on a recent podcast I think 22. Hella Wozniak K. That was the one book she recommended. So interesting that through all the lists of books that have been recommended over the last few podcasts, there's that mutual recommendation there. And the guitar thing, it's interesting. I bought little Dodsy, Ellie, who does the intros for the podcast, a ukulele last week. I coincidentally was out for the day with Hella from Show 22 and just walked past the music shop, saw some in the window. And I don't know why I particularly decided to buy it for her. She's got a guitar and hardly plays that. But I'd heard the ukulele was quite easy. And she's not put it down. And she's found internet things on the internet with the chords and the music for songs, like modern pop songs that she likes, and she just sits there strumming away, singing along, trying to get the chords right, sort of thing. And it's just amazing how quickly it's got her interest, and obviously she's really enjoying it. So there you go, a few less strings, but
Yeah, no, you know what? Now online with tabs and some of the videos. I mean, I wish I had that stuff when I was starting to learn. But
yeah,
it is it's a cool way just to kind of disconnect, have fun. And what I found, and the only advice is usually years 0 to 1 is super hard to get it right and know all the chords. But if she can get to that first year, then she'll have all the movements, all the chords down, and she can pretty much sing and play any song she wants. So that's cool.
See, that's where I went wrong. I played the guitar at school, but I didn't do it for longer than a year. So that's obviously the issue. And she's talking about playing the oboe next year. And my friend did send me a message, who's an oboist, saying, great that she wants to learn. Buy yourself some earplugs for at least the first 6 months.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I don't know. So what about on days when things don't go right? I can imagine in the startup world, you must have quite a few of those days. How do you deal with those days?
No, everything goes perfectly.
Oh, of course,
yeah. Never happens. Things don't go right a lot of time. I think from a productivity standpoint, you reevaluate your list and your priorities. And sometimes those it's too late to go through the daily ones, but from a weekly standpoint, or what, personally you're going for, the company's trying to go for, really just reevaluate the list and prioritize them and really get everyone focused. Sometimes I think when things don't go right, it just comes from a lack of focus. I think from a result standpoint, if results come in and they're not great, just try and reflect on why and try and change it. Try to decide what you're doing as the next step to make that happen. When we see numbers that we don't like, we reflect on why we think it's there, but just reflection isn't enough. We really try and focus on what's the action that we're going to do to try to make things happen. So that's kind of my approach. And then it's actually funny when you say things don't go right, you mentioned Headspace. Even though I haven't gotten to the cadence of using that as like a meditation tool, I have tried it, and they actually have this little thing in there called SOS. And it's this quick 3-minute kind of just stop. And there have been times where I have been, I traditionally don't show it, but super stressed and not sure how to move forward on something. And I have used the Headspace SOS tool, and it's just, again, 3 minutes of just stopping, coming up for air, it goes a long way in terms of, trying to, fix the things that don't go right.
Yeah. I didn't know that was on there, actually. Clearly, I think I've downloaded the app and never actually looked at it, but I didn't know that was there. So that's a top tip, definitely. I have to give that a go. on those days where, obviously, things aren't quite going to plan.
Yeah.
Lovely. So what about on a day when you end the day knowing that you've had the chance to live more? So I define that as the day where you've had the chance to do what you wanted to do, not the stuff that you feel like you should do or you have to do. What will you have done?
The chance to live more. So I think one thing that comes to mind is, did I do something that I've never done before? So what I mean by that is, have I engaged in some level of new experience that either learned something or something I could, have as a memory moving forward. And, yesterday actually was a great example. It's the first time I actually was on a sailboat and drove it and didn't know what I was doing, but it was a cool experience. And when I do something like that, then I feel I kind of lived more, right? Something I've just never done before, or never learned before.
Rob, I think it's called helming, not driving, but just, but good.
It's baby steps, all right?
Not that I know anything about it, but that's what I'm told. Lovely. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I learned something today. I'm happy.
So yeah, learning stuff that you've not done before, or having a chance to do something you've not done before. Anything else that springs to mind?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you put those top 5s, and some days you don't hit them all, and other days you crush them. And when you're reflecting on them and creating, firstly for me, when I'm creating the top 5 for the next day, that's great when all those things are checked off and I've made progress. And it wasn't one of those days that didn't go right. And you put those things out there to try to accomplish something, stay focused. So when you have those wins, that personal celebration of the win is pretty nice.
Yes, yeah. Sometimes it's the small things. I did something this morning that I've been intending to do for about 2 months. I was so happy with myself. It only took me about 20 minutes. I don't know why I've been procrastinating so long.
Yeah, there's a little rule. I can't remember where I read it, but they said if something comes in and it lands in your mailbox, someone asks you to do something and it's under 2 minutes, it's like, just go do it. Like, it may distract you, but if you get it done, it'll be off your mind. And I don't know, that might distract what you're currently doing or keep you unfocused, but there are those things that just kind of linger, and you finally finish them and wonder what took you so long.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm reading a book called The Organized Mind by somebody like Daniel Levittson or something, I think his surname is, and it's all about how the digital onslaught now, with everything being so 300 miles an hour and always on and that sort of thing. And what's really interesting was that he says that having an unread email in your inbox can reduce your IQ by as much as 10 points. Which really? I thought was really scary, because I work pretty much to inbox 0, and I do control my inbox well, and I sort of generally know what's going on with it and that sort of thing. But the average person has like hundreds of emails in their inbox. Many of them they haven't read and probably never will read. So it did worry me a tad that just one unread email can really have that impact on your brain. But I can sort of see that that's true, because that as you said, having that something nagging you to be done can impact your productivity generally, can't it?
Yeah, but I just glance at my emails and I have a whole whack of them I haven't read, so my IQ might be in the negatives. I'm not sure, but
I've just depressed you now. So just scary. Ignore that. I think he just made that fact up. It's not true at all.
But it's actually, I don't know, like that's actually really interesting. Like if I think about the whole idea about focus and creating a top 5, for example, the way I do it, and trying to accomplish the right things, not the urgent things, to me, like I shut off the email so that I can try and focus on those. So it sounds like a very counterintuitive to what this book is saying, but I guess I'll have to live with a low IQ then.
Yeah. No, but I think that is the point, actually, though. I think the point is exactly what you've said, that because you're focusing on the important things, you won't be impacted by the emails that you've chosen not to look at anyway. I think it's that sort of dopamine thing, isn't it, that where people can't help themselves but to look at their email because they can see that it's flashing, that there's a message, sort of thing. People who are falling into that trap, probably it does impact them. But if you've actually chosen to ignore those things, then I can see that it wouldn't then have that same impact. She said, trying to make you feel better.
Yeah, I appreciate it. No, that makes sense. I guess if you don't look at it, then it's not weighing on your mind. And it's not even email, right? It's Facebook messages, Twitter messages, LinkedIn messages, every other app that's pinging you for something. But that makes sense. I'll take a note and maybe read it and let you know what I think.
Yeah, well, that's the whole principle of Inbox 0. Everyone thinks it's about having no emails in your inbox, but it's not actually that. It's about your mind spending zero time in your inbox for getting your work done. So the guy that came up with it was all about managing your emails, such that you aren't using your inbox as a to-do list, and you're not actually worrying about what's in there because you're working elsewhere, which is exactly what you're doing. So I think, all joking aside, I think that is the point. That's what he's sort of saying, that if you've got a way of focusing on what's the stuff that you should be focusing on, then actually that stops that becoming an issue for you. But if you don't, then that's where it becomes a big issue, as you say. And it's not just email; it's everything, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. And I can appreciate that.
Cool. So we can move to the last question now. Now you're feeling a bit better. So Rob, tell us how people can find out more about you and connect up with you, and a bit more about the longer version of what Work Tango is.
Oh, sure. People can reach out to me anytime. Rob Catalano is the Twitter handle that I have. Obviously, that's my name on LinkedIn. Rob at worktango.io is my email address, and you can reach me there. Or if you went to the worktango.io website, you can email the company, and it'll get routed to me at some point. But from my end, I love connecting with different people and learning how they do things, and if some other productivity kind of hack has worked for you, I'd love to hear about it. But feel free to get in touch with me at any time. It's just great to connect with people.
Lovely. Thank you. Really enjoyed interviewing you as ever. It's not the first time I've interviewed you, is it?
Yeah, I know. It's I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, Joe, and all the best, and look forward to hearing a couple of the other ones that you've done in the last couple of weeks, and some of the future ones happening.
Lovely. Thank you.
Oh, and let little Dodzy know to keep plugging away on the ukulele. She'll get great in no time.
That I will, definitely. Thank you.
Joe's Jams.
Today we're going to talk about how to adopt a minimalist lifestyle in 5 easy steps. And the reason we're talking about this is that when I talk about living more, so getting to do more of the things that you want to do, I use 5 fundamentals to help you to work through that in your life and your business. And the first one is simplify. So it's about being very clear about what you want in your life and what you want to do, and therefore clear about what you don't want to do, and then aligning your life so that you're working more in the space of the things that you want to do and less around the things that you don't want to do. And one of the ways you can do this is to think about adopting a more minimalist lifestyle. It's quite a buzzword at the moment, minimalism, and there's a real spectrum of what that means, from people who reduce their belongings to 3 items and 4 shirts and a sofa, and that's all they have in their house. I might be slightly exaggerating there. Right the way through to people who still have quite a lot of stuff happening in their life, but less than they had before they started that process. And as with many things in life, it's a personal journey, a personal decision as to what works for you and what doesn't work for you. But adopting a more minimalist lifestyle can be a way to help to be happier and more fulfilled with what you are doing. We quite often think that we just need to keep adding more stuff into our lives and then we'll be happy. But actually, quite often it's the opposite that's true. That when we really start to focus on the things that we feel are important and that we want to do, and focus on those things, then actually that can really free us up to really enjoy our lives. With only focusing those things that we want to do rather than the stuff that we don't want to do, which is sort of the premise of Power to Live More in the first place. So if we think about scaling back, it lets us then focus on the things that we have and we appreciate and that are going well, and we can focus on those more. And also, getting less, having less, and committing to less can give us more time to relax and to recharge and to sort of start each day refreshed, because we've got sort of less stuff dragging us down, if you like. Hopefully be less or fewer money concerns, a less stressed calendar, and so on. So how do you embrace it then? What are the 5 steps that can help you to do that? So first, the big one for me is about reducing your surface clutter. So first of all, just thinking about the stuff that you have in your house and in your life and in your business that you can see. How can you have less of it. So how can you get rid of things? How can you clear work surfaces? How can you clear perhaps your desktop on your computer? How can you perhaps streamline what you're doing within your business, take out some processes so that you just have less, so that you're not seeing a busyness all the time. Again, I think it's very personal, and some people really do seem to thrive in a really busy, overstuffed environment. But I think, from talking to people, that most people actually do appreciate some opportunity to have that sort of clear space, whether that be in your house or on your desk or in your computer, to really help you to think more clearly. So have a look at your house, have a look at your business, have a look at your computer, and just work through on a daily basis just a little bit a day of getting rid of some stuff. So what don't you need anymore, and perhaps taking it to a charity shop or deleting it if it's on your computer. Or if you're thinking about things that you're doing in your life, work out the things you want to do, work out the things you don't want to do, and work on a plan to gradually cut out those things that you don't want to be doing. So moving on to the second thing on the same theme is about cutting things out, as I've said. So look for recurring commitments or tasks or recurring bills that are happening all the time and that actually are depleting your energy and your reserves or your money, and just say no to that. So work out a way to not keep doing those things, or to stop paying for whatever it is that you don't really need to be paying for, that you are continuing to. And just have a look at your to-do list. There's certainly things that I do on a daily or a weekly basis that every so often, when I do a little review, I realise that actually I don't really need to be doing them. I'm just doing them because it's become a habit and it's not actually doing my business or my life any good anymore, so I need to cut those things out. So have a look at those recurring commitments, tasks and payments that you're making, and see if you can do something to reduce them. Here's a bit of a radical one for number 3. It's get rid of old boxes, or if we're talking digital, then get rid of folders on your computer. The radical way is just to get rid of them. So if you've got a box that's been in your wardrobe or under your bed or anywhere else for longer than 3 months, 6 months, a year, and you've not looked at it, then you probably can get rid of what's in it without really noticing. And then at some stage in the future, if there's something you need and you haven't got it, then you can always go and buy it again or find it from somewhere else. But if they're the sorts of boxes where you know that it's stuff that you may have used but you haven't, then just getting rid of them isn't an issue. I think if it's sort of memories and that sort of thing, then obviously it's a slightly different scenario, and I'm certainly one that I do go through old boxes and make sure that I don't need the stuff before I get rid of it. But really, if you've not looked in that box for a good period of time, then chances are you don't need what's in there. And the same with your computer. I've got so many folders from the last 11 years in business where actually I could probably delete half of them and I would never notice because I don't actually know what's in them. Again, for me to sort through them, I'm doing a little bit every day and sorting out things in my business and my home and my office, and I probably will put looking at folders on my computer on that list of daily actions. But again, as I say, there are some folders that probably can just go. One little tip for that is I tend to, on my computer, have a folder that's called to delete. And if I have to save stuff, you sometimes have to save things to send them on to people or just to be able to view them, but you don't really need them on your computer. I save them into that to delete folder, and then every so often I can go in and delete everything in the folder knowing that I don't need it, because I wouldn't have put it in there if it was something that needed to be kept longer than that moment when I was saving it to my computer and looking at it. So that is one way of continuing to keep stuff that you don't really need off your computer that you might find helpful. The fourth tip is to make a one in, one out rule, and that's so that every time you bring something into your house or your business or onto your computer even, you must replace an item, you must replace something. So you bring something in, you must always take something away, and that can be a good way of making sure that you at least don't increase the number of items that you have in your life and business, even if it doesn't go down as a result of bringing something new in. But if you think about it in your social life, if you're making arrangement to regularly meet up with friends, say once a month, is there something you're already doing once a month that you don't really need to do anymore, or you're not enjoying as much, that perhaps you could stop doing? So you can make that work in all different ways. When you add something in, take something out. And then the last tip for minimalising and reducing things in your life is about introducing systems, which actually is linking into the second fundamental that I talk about as far as living more, and that is about systemising. So look at the things that are taking time in your life, in your business, and look at introducing systems to help you to do those things quicker, more efficiently, or perhaps in an automated way. So, things like if you wash up a lot and you don't have a dishwasher, then maybe a dishwasher might save you time. Or you might have ways of managing your emails so that you don't have to spend so much time there. I use a tool called SaneBox, which sorts my email automatically into different folders for me, which makes it much quicker for me to go through and triage my email and work out the stuff that I need to do, the stuff that I need to save for later, and the stuff that I need to delete. So think about all areas of your life, as I said, home, business, working on your computer and so on, and see if there's a quicker easier way of doing something by systemising and in some cases automating whatever that task might be. So those are my 5 tips for helping you to minimalise your life. As I said at the beginning, I think sometimes by taking stuff out and simplifying, you can really free up and create space for you to either do more of the stuff that you want to do, or even just do less and be more calm and relaxed and look after yourself more, which takes us into one of my other essays, which is all about self-care. So I hope you found those 5 helpful. So that's about reducing your surface clutter. Second one was cutting things out, so your recurring items and recurring appointments and so on. Third one is get rid of old boxes, old folders, things that you don't need anymore. The fourth one is about having a 1 in, 1 out rule, so that when you get something new, you get rid of something that you've already got. And the fifth one was about introducing systems to make things more efficient, more effective, and potentially automated.
Use your power to live more.
All this information is available on the show notes on the website powertolivemore.com / in this case 26. And if you're thinking about decluttering and doing it gradually a little bit every day, then you might be interested in my Get Stuff Done with Power group accountability system. It focuses you on powering through that to-do list and starting and completing tasks and projects that up to now have eluded you, and can be really helpful when you're looking to do a little bit every day of whatever that project might be. So in this case, if you want to do some decluttering, you could spend each of those 28 days spending 20 minutes or however long each day doing just a little bit of decluttering and using the group accountability system to keep you on track. So if you want to find out more, then go to getstuffdonewithpower.com. And again, the link for the show is powertolivemore.com / 26, and we look forward to speaking to you next time.